Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Mr. Farney Earth Science video. In this video, we're going to cover the basics of sedimentary rocks, and then we will eventually finish out the unit with metamorphic. But in this one, we're going to discuss just the basic processes in which sedimentary rocks form. In the next video, we're going to talk a little bit more specific about the different types of sedimentary rocks. So the main idea for this video is looking at how sediments that are produced by weathering and then move from erosion form these sedimentary rocks through the process of lithification. And there's two different types of lithification, which we'll talk about in a few minutes here. So a couple points of interest. First one, in our last section, igneous rocks, we learned about different types of igneous rocks, and igneous rocks come from either magma or lava, and they are the most common type of rock on Earth. However, at the surface, the most common type of rock is sedimentary rocks. Metamorphic rocks kind of fall into a gray area because, we have some metamorphic rocks at the surface, but they need a lot of heat and pressure to form. So in order for them to get there, they need some sort of motion underground, forcing them to the surface. So igneous rocks are the most common because there's a lot of magma underground, and there's a lot of volcanism almost always happening. Sedimentary rocks also, while most common on the surface, they take a little bit longer period of time to form than our volcanic igneous rocks. So very interesting situation we have here. So again, igneous rocks are the most common type on Earth. Sedimentary rocks are the most common type on the surface. You want to be able to differentiate those two. So we're talking sediment here. What is sediment? Well, sedimentary rocks, they form from the accumulation of sediment, which, are different small pieces, essentially. You want to think sediment as the building blocks for sedimentary rocks. It can be rock fragments, it can be plant and animal remains, kind of like bones or skeleton or shell or something like that, or it can even be minerals that are dissolved in water that eventually settle out of that water once that water stops flowing. So sediment, or the accumulation of sediment, forms our sedimentary rocks. The process that helps us get that sediment is called weathering, or the breaking down of different types of rocks. And that gives us that building material that make up sedimentary rocks. Some of these pieces and bits we refer to as clasts. So if I use the word clast, that just means a piece of weathered or broken down material that can be used to form a sedimentary rock. They are then eroded, which is a word meaning transportation, to a new location where eventually they can accumulate in layers and then are either compacted or squished together, or they're glued or cemented together, depending on the type of material we're dealing with. On this picture, you can see this fun little cartoony mountain on the left here with all these little streams running through it. After weathering occurs and we have these different class material in our streams, the process of erosion pushes them from the mountain range out into like a lake or an ocean or an area where the water is not as turbulent, and this sediment able to kind of settle out in these different kind of thin horizontal layers. After we have that, the process of lithification can happen. It's a physical and chemical process that turns these sediment into sedimentary rocks through either compaction, which is pressure or squishing together, or cementation, which you can think of gluing, where we have these different little clasts, these different little sediments that come together and are stuck together by some sort of glue material. And by glue material, I mean an other kind of sediment that just kind of holds them together. If you look at this pictures, on the left is compaction. I like the mud picture here because it shows a really good example of how if there's a lot of water in my sediment, and then it squishes together, it forces that water out, but I'm maintaining these horizontal layers. So compaction is like squeezing. Cementation, you can see here these little orange kind of particles, that's our sediment, those are our clasts. And as they kind of are pushed together, we have this pore space in between them, almost like a sponge. And then some other sediment fills it in and sticks these larger clast bits together. The gray color in the third image, that represents the other kind of sediment that is being used as the glue that is holding them all together. So we have compaction, cementation, both parts of lithification. Very important process. Once we have either the compaction or the cementation happening, we can look at this idea of bedding within sedimentary rocks. It's a specific feature found within sedimentary rocks, and it tells us information about the setting in which that rock formed. Was it in a desert? Was it underwater? Was it in a stream? Was it in a specific type of sea? All these we can tell from bedding. So there's three types. The first type being graded bedding, where you have a sequence of sediment that settles out from water with the larger coarse grains at the bottom. And then as you move up through the rock, it gets smaller and smaller or more fine grained. So it's that fining upward sequence of smaller grain material at the top, larger at the bottom. That's graded bedding, like we see in this picture. The second is called cross bedding, where we have inclined layers of sediment stretched across a larger horizontal layer. So if you look at this picture, and if I were to take my little drawing tool here, the horizontal layer is this entire area right here. That's the horizontal layer. But found within that horizontal layer, you can see it's a zigzag pattern that's going on. That is my cross bedding, is that zigzag pattern. So we have inclined layers of sediment which are deposited across a long horizontal area. That's cross bedding. Lastly, the last one is more seasonal. It's called varve. And varve is where you have bands of alternating sand, silt, and clay. So different grain sizes of material that represent seasonal deposits generally associated with glaciers. So during winter months, glacier kind of move forward, and as they retreat during the summer months, they will deposit different types of material, whether different size types of material also. So that's sand, silts, clays, and even larger material too. So varve is like these alternating layers of light colored and dark colored material, frequently sand, silt, clay. So we have graded bedding, we have cross bedding, and we have varve. Those are three different types of bedding that we can see in landscapes, such as the one on your screen right here, that tells us a lot about the origin of these different types of sedimentary rocks. So lithification, we have cementation, we have compaction, and then we have our different types of bedding. In the next video, we'll get more into the specifics of the different types of sedimentary rock and how we can use specific characteristics to help identify those rocks. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please go ahead and let me know. If not, have a good rest of your day, and I'll check back with you in the next video. Take care.